the Minister of Health is calling for renewed commitment to ending the spread of HIV and AIDS by the year 2030. Osage Hanire, who was represented by the Director of National AIDS and Sexually Transmitted Infection Control Program, Dr. Akudo Ikbazu, made the call at a news conference ahead of the day to commemorate the World AIDS Day. Well, he's urging government at all levels to step up action in the fight against HIV.
We need to equalize access to essential HIV services, particularly for children, pregnant women, key population and their partners, and those in close settings who are often forgotten. To do this, we must, in a consistent manner, address and remove all structural barriers that impact negatively on access to services. Our aim is to find all pregnant women, to test all of them, to ensure that all who are positive are placed on treatment, and ensure that we can report on every single woman who has been tested and placed on treatment.
Nigeria's success story is evident from the significant reduction in HIV prevalence of 3.4% in 2017 to a population-based prevalence of 1.3% in 2018. As at the end of September 2022, we have about 1.6 million persons living with HIV/AIDS on treatment, which represent a significant increase when compared to just a little over 800,000 in 2017.
Most left behind are children living with HIV and AIDS. They are pregnant women. They are adolescent girls and young women. They are key population. We need to do everything possible to ensuring that they can have equal access to stigma-free services.
Well, Dr. Gambo Aliyu, the Director General, National Agency for the Control of AIDS, joins me now in the studio for more discussions on the World AIDS Day and, of course, those troubling statistics rolled out earlier. Thank you so much, Dr. Gambo, for being here.
Thank you, Ameka. Pleasure to be here with you.
Well, we have some cheering news, but not so cheering news. But let's start with the not so cheering, then we get eventually to the cheering news. The fact that we're seeing more prevalence when it concerns HIV in Nigeria, more on the girls and women than the men. Looking at this data that you rolled out, you're saying girls from the age of 15 to 49 are considered that disproportionate, the burden of HIV. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, two reasons. One, generally female are more accessible or more amenable to utilizing our services in terms of uptake of our programs of prevention and treatment. They take more HIV tests than men.
Oh.
And at the same time, biologically, they are at higher risk, of acquiring HIV compared to men. So that said, but when you look at the statistics globally, not only in Nigeria, it's always like that. The burden is more on the side of women and girls, young girls, adolescents, as well as women in general, do have higher prevalence and do have higher burden. But surprisingly, they get more virus suppressed than men because they take the medications, more diligently than men. And as you take this medication, this virus disappears. And once the virus disappears, it will not do those things that it does.
Right.
Yeah.
And the cheering news is the fact that Nigeria records a decline in new infections, and we're seeing even more people come on treatment, 1.6 million now. Cheering news there?
Yes, if you compare with what it was in 2019, we had a little over 800,000 that were on treatment. Now we are talking about 1.6 million. The significance of this is that you cannot end AIDS, and certainly you cannot arrest the spread of HIV without identifying people who have the virus in them and immobilizing the virus. What you do when you give them medication is you keep the virus within them. And as you keep the virus within the people that have it, and the virus disappears from their blood, it is not seen, it is not transmitted.
Right.
Yeah.
The good thing about it is there are new innovations that, have come during the last couple of years in terms of preventing HIV transmission, talking about PrEP and even PEP and all of that. But some of this technology that is readily available, a lot of Nigerians are not aware. So what are we doing to ensure that everyone is aware that even though, God forbid, you get raped, for instance, you can actually prevent getting HIV even though the abuser is positive?
Excellent. Yes, issues of rape, issues of discordant couples, and population groups that are at higher risk of acquiring HIV behaviorally. These are population groups that are target of the PrEP program you're talking about. What that does is it actually prevents HIV infection from setting in. If somebody is at risk or higher risk of acquiring HIV, especially men who have sex with men, sex workers, injection drug users, and transgenders, using PrEP will prevent HIV from setting in and will prevent them from acquiring HIV. That is someone who is HIV negative and is at risk of becoming HIV positive can now use PrEP. But for somebody who has acquired the virus, now what that one requires is full-fledged treatment, and that is what is needed to make the virus disappear. And once that virus disappears and it is kept at that level, the virus doesn't get transmitted and it doesn't bring down the body defense mechanism.
So basically HIV is not a death sentence.
It has ceased to be a death sentence for the last 1 decade.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. But at the end of the day, looking at the theme for this year's World AIDS Day, it's talking about equality, equalization, and all of that. Talk to us about what this really means, especially for, that population in Nigeria.
The global target of ending AIDS by the year 2030 cannot be achieved if still HIV get transmitted. It cannot be achieved if HIV still kill individuals. And HIV get transmitted and HIV kill people, one, who are not aware that they have HIV because the virus continues to grow in them and they transmit it unknowingly to other people. And also the virus arrest and destroy their body defense mechanism and make them sick. And eventually, without medication, they die. These two things are what the medications that were given, the life-saving medication, arrest and prevent. But how do you bring people to take medication if they don't know they have the virus?
Right.
First stage is let them be aware of their HIV status.
By getting tested. And I know there's new technology where you can test yourself at home. Can you just walk into any pharmacy and pick up the self-test kit for HIV in Nigeria as it stands today?
Not any pharmacy, but some pharmacies. But gradually, we're hoping in the next 1 year, this test will be much more popularized, and they will be virtually everywhere where people want to have them. And what that does is to take away the fear and the concern people have with confidentiality. They want the test, but they don't want anybody to know they're taking the test. They want the test, but they don't want anybody to know about the outcome of the test. The self-test does that. You take the test, sit down in your room, and you can use your saliva, you can use your blood, just simple prick, and then you can test. The instructions are there. You can interpret at the end and see whether HIV, signs of HIV are there or not. If there are no signs of HIV, fine, you're HIV negative. But if there are indications that this test is positive, then now you need to go to one of our centers that are available across the country to now confirm. And what they will do is to repeat the test. And after repeating the test, they now go and see whether the virus is there physical.
Discreetly?
Yeah, because
I asked this because some people are still not taking the test, like you have even alluded to earlier on, especially if you look at the key population, where you look at men having sex with men, even sex workers and all of those people who fall in that bracket. So what is NACA doing to ensure that these people feel comfortable even having this test done? Do you have certain plans for them?
Yeah.
Discrete plans?
Yeah. So these are our target in terms of popularizing the self-test. The self-test is more or less more beneficial to them because individuals who are at higher risk of acquiring HIV and could get HIV any day or any time are advised to test themselves minimum every three months. And if that status changes at any time, then they are advised to quickly find out one of our centers where they can take this medication, and these medications are free of charge. But for the general population, we've seen rapid decline about HIV. We don't see HIV much in the general population now, which is a very good sign that we are on our way to controlling the virus, and we are on our way to ending AIDS by the year 2030.
2030 is the target, but equalize to end AIDS is a theme for this year. Talk to us about activities that you have lined up to ensure that Nigerians are more aware.
World AIDS Day is usually a one-week event. We usually begin between around 24th, 25th of November, and then continue and end on the big day. That is the 1st of December. The 1st of December is the World AIDS Day, the day set aside for us to take stock and see what we have achieved and look at the challenges ahead of us. And also remember those who have lost their lives, either directly from the virus or in the process of providing services to people who have the virus. This year, yes, our global theme is equalize, and the equalization there is to end inequalities. And when we talk of inequality, we're talking about inequality in terms of access to our prevention and treatment services globally, more especially among the vulnerable and marginalized population. And these are some of the population you've narrated, the key affected population, people that are incarcerated, and people that are vulnerable because of poverty, people that are vulnerable because of insecurity. They have now been displaced. They find themselves in an appropriate inappropriate places, and by whatever means, the risk of getting HIV increases. So these are the category of people that we are now focusing our attention more to make sure that prevention services get to them, including the PrEP you're talking about, and also testing services. And this includes the self-testing. And treatment services also get to them. If we succeed, and we will succeed, in getting this population to access our services the way we want and the way we planned, then I can guarantee you by the year 2025, Nigeria will either end AIDS or will be at the verge of ending AIDS.
Well, you missed out one thing. I do know that you have generation negative as well. You have something on that? Talk to us about that real quick. You're talking about a young generation that is negative.
These are people that we don't actually see on either our treatment data or our activities. Why? Because they are a generation that is very difficult to connect with. And you're talking about adolescents and young adults. And what we have realized is that you cannot actually provide a service to this population without them getting involved.
Right.
So we're getting them involved, and that is what generation negative is all about.
Right. Gen N.
Gen N.
But for now, we have to say thank you so much to you, Dr. Gambo Aliyu, for all that you're doing, because even during the pandemic, when most countries saw a decline for people coming on treatment, we saw an increase here in Nigeria. Well done to you and your team and all that you do. Thank you so much for being here. Director General, National Agency for the Control of AIDS.